So when it comes to Black-Green Yawgmoth, I often get asked if I have played a specific card or a specific build before, and just about every single time the answer is yes. Yes, I have played that card. Yes, I have tested that. I've tested just about every single possible card or configuration that you can imagine when it comes to Black-Green Yawgmoth. I have made it a point to test corner case scenarios and very niche cards to see if they are worthwhile when it comes to playing this deck. What's up everybody, my name is Control for Days if I didn't introduce myself already. I am a Black-Green Yawgmoth specialist. This is the deck that I have chosen to play as my competitive deck in the modern format, and I take great pride in the fact that I've had some pretty good success with the deck, and I consider myself a bit of an expert on the subject. If you haven't done so already, if this is your first time joining me on this channel, please hit that subscribe button. That is apparently the thing that matters the most when it comes to YouTube content, so I would greatly appreciate it if you did that. So I was mentioning the deck list that we've played up to this point. We've done just about everything, but today I am doing something that I have not done before. This is something brand new, and the inspiration that I'm drawing for this, I did not think of. I just bite the styles of people who do it better than I do. So today, once again, we're running a list from our good friend Zerk. Zerk got a 19th or 18th place finish in the challenge this weekend, and did something that there have been some rumblings about for quite some time. But as per usual, Zerk is blazing the trail and leading the way with regards to testing it. Today, we are running an additional land in our Yawgmoth list. We are going up to 22 lands, one of which is Dryad Arbor, and we are shaving, once again, another Birds of Paradise. The reason why we would do this, or the reason why this would be a viable strategy, is because of the presence of very efficient removal spells in the format, particularly red-based removal, lightning bolts, and unholy heats. Birds of Paradise, the value of the card continues to drop as a result of this, and for that reason, we often get stuck on 2 mana or 3 mana, not being able to cast out our Yawgmoth because we don't have the requisite lands to cast our spells. This list aims to solve that problem, relying less on mana creatures and more on our mana base. The thing that we're changing about the mana base with regards to this list, Zerk is running a 3rd forest, which he has been doing for quite some time, but the big thing is we're going up to a 3rd nurturing peatland, which serves 2 purposes. 1, it's that extra land that we wanted, and 2, in the late game, you can sacrifice it to draw a card. So we're going to take this list through a league, we're going to test it out, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on the 22 land build of Black-Green Yawgmoth, one I have never tested before, but I'm eager to see how it performs. Let's jump into the league and see how it does. Alright my friends, we are jumping in. This is our Modern League match 1. We are playing in SvenSveeterSven. SvenSveeterSven. It's a tongue twister there. Sven is going to be on the play. They have mulligan to 6 cards. Our opening 7, it's kind of funny because we add an extra land to try to avoid situations like what our opening hand is posing to us. I think we are going to mulligan this hand as well. We're going to join Sven on a 6. Our 6-card hand is not great, but I think it's worth keeping. You're going to open up the range of hands that you keep when you're mulliganing down to 6, and normally on a 7 I would not keep this, but on a 6 I think I will. Okay, our opponent keeps their 6, we'll bottom our tomb. Our mana is pretty perfect. Without the tomb we don't need to be taking damage off our lands. Having the Twilight Mirror kind of fixes that for us. No turn 1 play from our opponent, which we are happy to see. Moving to our turn. Drawn to an Eldritch Evolution. Not too big of a deal in terms of doesn't really change too much with regards to our hand. Yes, it gives us access to Yawgmoth, but it's not exactly not the greatest draw. We would have preferred a 1-drop there. Okay, so our opponent is playing a control deck, and that's the vibe we're getting based off of what they fetched there. We draw into a Court of Calling. We're going to play out our Twilight Mirror and our Strangleroot Geist. We'll see if we can draw out a counterspell here, which we're fine if our opponents want to use that on the Geist. And they do, hopefully opening up the avenue for us to get our Grist down next turn. Opponent's up to 5 cards, they play out a land, and they pass the turn. So in this matchup, generally you want to get out of the gates pretty quickly. It does not appear that we are doing that. Opponent ices one of our lands, sure. 2-drop would be nice, not a 2-drop, okay. think here, our opponent has 4 cards in hand. I think we'll just be playing out one of our lands and passing. I'm going to save the Catacombs to fetch for a Dryad Arbor at some point. Our worst possible draw there was a land, and we pulled that. Okay, opponent plays an Expressive Iteration. So they're playing like some weird control-ish variation here. We're going to look at the top card of our library. Sure. Okay. I wonder if they're trying to play like some variation of Twin. I wonder if that's what they're doing. They have 5 cards in hand. And we have an Ignoble Hierarch. Alright, so we're going to lead on the Hierarch here. Let's see if our opponent does anything. I can't imagine that they're going to bite on that one. And then we'll play out our Peatland. We'll take a damage off this. And we're going to play out our Grist from here. We'll see if they have another counterspell. I am checking them on that. They do not. And given the fact we don't see any white mana coming from their side of the table, that is actually going to be a very important card. 2 mana. Their second iteration of the game. They're recouping the card disadvantage that they had off their mulligan, but we should be able to do the same, assuming we can resolve this Court of Calling. This is like, kind of has a Modern of 2016 vibe going on here with the Cascade bluffs and whatnot. Bolt the Grist. Sure. You gonna bolt it again? Okay. So that's a little annoying. That does take us off of Yawgmoth for at least a turn, unless we draw a 2-drop, which we did not. We drew another land, which is pretty bad. Opponent has 4 cards in hand. I think I'm just going to take this opportunity and we're going to Court of Calling, getting ourselves another Grist. I mean, they made it pretty apparent that that was a priority for them to get rid of. They 2-for-1 themselves to do so. So we'll get another one in play, continuing to pressure them. We have this Peatland as a redraw too, which I think is going to be important at some point. Opponent's tapping 3 mana, casts a Fable. Very strange. I'm not exactly sure what they're doing here. Okay, yeah, so they're trying to do like a Deceiver Exarch thing. Like they think they're a geeky jeeky deck. That's a pretty good draw. Okay, so from here, I'm going to lead on the Geist. And they dress down our Geist. Sure. So their concern is that we're going to attack with that. We get punished here if they have something like a Spell Pierce, but I'm not going to play around that. I am just going to fire off this Evo. So with that being said, I'm just going to fetch basic. If you have it, you have it. They do have it. Okay. Yes, that works out for our opponent, but what are you going to do? Opponent has 2 cards in hand. And from here, I think I'm just going to be plussing my Grist and then passing the turn. Like the Shaman is not so much the issue, the Fable, once it flips, is going to be more of the issue. They discard 2 lands, play out a Mishra's Bauble. Look at their top card, they fetch. So they don't know what's on top of their library at this point. 1 card in hand. Seems like they're attacking with the Hall. Sure, that's fine. And the Goblin, sure. I think we're okay double blocking here, and we'll single block the Hall. Okay, pretty good. Pretty good. Alright, so they have 1 card in hand that they drew just now. We'll draw with our Peatland. We'll sacrifice there. Birds of Paradise, not great. We'll swing with our Dryad Arbor, play out our Overgrown Tomb, and then we will pass the turn from here. So our opponent's going to be flipping their Fable here. We'll see if they just go beatdown mode again. With this Hall of the Storm Giant, seems like they are. Okay, maybe not. Create a 2/2 blue spirit creature token with vigilance, and whenever you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter. Okay, our opponent has 1 card in hand. They're representing a counter spell here. We're flooding out pretty hard here. Okay, I think we just keep this and we pass the turn. And I think that was the turn we had to draw into something, and the fact that we didn't, we're likely going to be in trouble. I suppose if we stick a Yawgmoth, we can still get ourselves out of this situation, but if we do not, it's going to be problematic. Okay, yeah, Yawg is not going to do it for us at this point. Besage. Okay. I think we're going to scoop it up from here. Moving to game 2. Alright, we're going to bring in some Endurances. I think we're going to bring in Shieldred as well. Thought Seizes seem very reasonable, as does the Veil of Summer. So we'll bring in these 7 cards. I think Endurance. Okay, boarding out, we're going to get rid of the Eldritch Evolutions, fairly obviously. Young Wolf, not a great card, so we'll be getting rid of those, 2 of those as well. We saw Dress Down. I feel like we can probably shave a bird. And I feel like it's either Innkeeper or Blood Artist. I think we get rid of the Innkeeper. No, I think we probably get rid of the Blood Artist. Or maybe I keep both and get rid of the other bird. We'll try that. Okay, opening 7, this is acceptable. Nothing too great, but it's better than the hand we had last game, so. Opponent keeps a 7-card hand as well. Play out our Yawgmoth, we'll pass the turn. Opponent leads Bobble, they target themselves. Steam Vents tapped. Alright. That means Innkeeper is resolving. Let's do it. Geist is resolving. Do I want Geist or do I want Innkeeper? I feel like Innkeeper keeps them honest because it represents Yawgmoth next turn. So maybe we lead Innkeeper. We'll swing for 1. And we'll pass the turn. Alright, we're yielding through the turn here. We got nothing going on, so we'll just let them kind of do their thing. They casted a Hall, pass the turn. I think they're contemplating whether or not they want to Fire Ice, whether or not they want to hit down our lands, or they want to hit one of our creatures. Veil of Summer, not terrible. I think I'm going to lead on this Geist. And with this counterspell, I'm going to use my Veil now, just because I want to hit another land drop. And there it is. We'll gain a life, and then we'll hit them for 4. So now the pressure's on them to do something, and then if we stick our Yawgmoth in play as the board stands, it's just game over. So we'll see what they do. They fetch. Fable. Okay. So unless they have a Subtlety, this is game over from here. I think I should be keeping my eyes open for a Blood Moon potentially as well. Maybe not this game, but next game. We're going to fetch right now. Go to Swamp. Get our Yawg. And they do have a Subtlety. Okay. Okay. So Teferi. Alright, we're going to put this on top. And I think I'm going to keep these guys back. In case they attack, I'm just going to block the Goblin with the Strangleroot. Okay, they discard an Otawara. Of note, the Veil of Summer does not stop Subtlety from hitting one of your creatures on the stack. Okay, they got 3 cards. Okay. So they are representing some form of a counterspell here. I'm going to lead on the Shieldred. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So they do have... I'm guessing they have an Unholy Heat in hand. And I'm going to attack for 2 here. Okay, here's the Unholy Heat. Kind of knew about that. Sure. Okay, they flip their Reflection. They play out a land. They have 2 cards left in hand. No attack. Okay, so I think from here we just jam. I'm expecting a counterspell. Actually, maybe I attack first once again. No blocks. I suppose the question is, do I play out the Hapatra here? Or do I play out the Yawgmoth? I mean, I have to imagine they have a counterspell. I think I'm going to play out the Hapatra, hoping to draw into something like a Thoughtseize. Okay, they draw a card. 3 cards in hand. Hapatra resolves. Play out our Blooming Marsh. We'll pass the turn. So they will be able to start generating mana with this Reflection. They'll be copying the Goblin token and then being able to swing in with it without consequence, pretty much. Interesting, they're just attacking with the actual token as opposed to making a copy. A little strange. They bolt the Hapatra. Yeah, we'll take 2. 2 cards in their hand. Thoughtseize? Court of Calling. Okay, so I think we just wait here. They can definitely make a copy. And they ice down our Geist. I think I'm actually going to respond to that. And we'll court for 4. The reason I'm doing this right now, it seems they have a counterspell, was because if I resolve that, I can cut them off of drawing a card with the ice. But they do in fact have the counter, which we kind of anticipated. We'll take a hit for 6. They'll get 3 treasure tokens off of this. Sure. And now they had to have drawn a counterspell off the top. And we'll see if they did. Okay, second Yawg, not terrible. They're just kind of waiting back in the wings here. Did you draw it? Okay, they did. Alright. I'll try again next turn. Opponent has 2 cards in hand. We're making another copy here. Sure. They attack for 4. We're going to take the hit for 4. Like, the damage is inconsequential right now. It doesn't really matter. We just want our creatures in play. They have near infinite mana at this point. Anger of the Gods. Okay. Okay. We're doing that. So the opponent's kind of paving the way for their Hall of the Storm Giants here. And now we're stuck with pretty much nothing. We'll play out our Yawgmoth. Resolves. Not going to be great when we don't have, creatures to go with it. A little unfortunate. I think our best draw from here is probably a Hapatra. Or a Grist, I mean. Iteration. Interesting. So we'll see if our opponent blows all of their treasure tokens in an attempt to swing with this Hall of the Storm Giant. If they don't, we will be happy about that. Even drawing into a fetch land at this point would be fine. Okay, and they don't attack. They're giving us a huge opportunity here. Very strange. Alright, yes, I would like to play that. 4 mana. Subtlety. Okay, so Subtlety, this basically represents lethal. We'll see if our opponent attacks with their Hall. I'm assuming they're going to. And if they do, yeah, I'm going to scoop it up. We're 0-1. Alright, we need to not get tilted here. Match 2, Modern League. We're 0-1. Off to a rough start. We are playing against DragonFodder. We are going to be on the play. Let's see how this one goes. Opening 7. It's lacking business, but I think it's still a keep. Alright, opponent keeps their 7-card hand. Let's do it. We will lead on a Hierarch. Hoping that survives and we'll get a hit in for 3. Usually doesn't survive though. Steam Vents. Bolt. Oh, what in the world? What are we playing against today? Thoughtbound Phantasm. Defender. 2/2. When you Surveil, put a 1/1 counter on it. As long as it has 3 or more counters, it can attack as though it did not have Defender. Gotcha. So I guess our opponent's going to be doing a lot of surveilling. I'm going to play out my Wall of Roots. We're going to build out our mana here into a Wall of Roots, into our Birds of Paradise, and pass the turn. Okay, the thing, it looks like it should get flying, but it does not. Our deck, fortunately, is very good at blocking, so we'll be able to block this thing if it does get big. Opponent casts Otherworldly Gaze. So this thing will get a 1/1/1/1 counter. They keep all the cards on top, I guess. It's interesting. They didn't put anything into their graveyard. Cast out a Blue Delta, pass the turn. They have 5 cards in hand. Okay, we're drawn into a land, which we don't really particularly want, but that's okay. Play out our Geist. I guess the question is, do they have something else they can surveil with, or do they not? I think it's likely they do. And for that reason, I'm actually just going to keep this guy back on blocking duty. I'm not going to sacrifice it attacking into this thing, this silly creature that they have over here. And we're going to draw a card with this Peat land, the next opportunity we get on their turn. Opponent fetches. Really strange. So they kept all the cards on top with the Gaze, but then they fetched. Now they're going to consider. They'll put another counter on this thing. Sure. If we can sneak through with Hapatra as well, that will be pretty good blocker to have against this thing. Murktide goes to the graveyard. So they're running some sort of like Murktide, Turbo Murktide list. Playing against some weird decks tonight. The Blue-Red Bruise. Opponent plays Scalding Tarn. Fetches out another basic. Need to make sure I'm not yielding through the turn here. Mission Briefing. Sure. Can continue to surveil. So that's a -1 card there. So not great. This card got a little bit of hype when it first came out, Mission Briefing, but I mean, I get the idea. They're just trying to make this thing really big, but now they're tapping out. Sure. They kept the card that they scried or that they surveilled with Consider. And now they're attacking, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, we'll block this. And now our Hapatra will be able to get through. It'll be able to reset our Geist. And we'll have a Death Toucher in play. And we're going to draw a card. And there's a Yawg. Okay, so that's, I think, probably a good game. If I had to guess. I guess we'll start with an attack. Attack for 5. And I'm going to use these counters off of these Wall of Roots just because I think there's a good chance we can use them again on their turn. We're going to draw a bunch of cards. So we play a land out. We can cast out this Grist as well. We'll undo all of their hard work here. This thing can no longer attack. Okay, Chord of Calling, we'll use that. And we will get ourselves a Blood Artist. We should be up a game. Our first game win of this league here. Alright, our opponent scoops. All right, game 2. We did see Murktide Regent. We did see Mission Briefing, so we're going to bring in our Endurances. We saw big creatures, so we're going to bring in our Cut, our Go for the Throat, and our Fatal Push. I imagine they probably have counter spells of some sort, despite the fact we didn't see any. Maybe I bring in Thoughtseizes instead of the Veil of Summer, or a 1-1 split. Go with a 1-1 split here. Then I think I'm probably just going to board similar to Murktide here. I'm going to board out Eldritch Evolutions. I'll board out some number of Hierarchs. Whether or not they have Ragavan, I'm guessing they actually don't. So I think I'm going to board out a Yawgmoth, and I'll board out Blood Artist as well. And we'll submit this. See if we get punished for boarding out a Yawgmoth. I'm hedging my bets. Opening 7. Geists galore. We'll try it. Seems like they're kind of like a slow build. So we'll see if we get punished for this. Steam Vents. Ragavan? Alright, Channeler. So got the answer to the Channeler here. Bobble combo. Channeler Bobble combo. They keep a card on top. What good is the Surveil if you're always keeping the cards on top? 4 cards in hand. They look at our top card. Swamp. Suppose we could play out the Swamp, but I think we take the opportunity to play out the Tomb because that is the right play. And we'll pass turn. Opponent draws off their Bobble, draws for turn. Land, fetch, basic. They are very proactively fetching basics here. So the question arises of whether or not there's Blood Moon. I would imagine there probably is, but they already played land for turn. They have 3 card types in the graveyard. All right, we drew a basic. Basic is nice. I'm just going to lead on the basic here, and we'll play out our Geist and just pass the turn. So we could do I pass the turn? Do I attack? I think I actually attack here. We'll push them. I think with how aggressive our hand is, oh, they're going to bolt it. Wow. Yeah, we're okay with that. So I guess the question arises from here. They keep a card on top again. I don't understand. They are keeping everything on top. So if they cast out a Murktide here, I'm going to Grist and just kill it probably. Maybe. Maybe it doesn't even matter. Second Channeler, sure. Fetch land. Second basic. Consider. So this is really opening up the window for me to get my Endurance into play. They still only have 3 card types. We're keeping a lot of stuff on top. No attack. Okay. Hierarch, not bad. Not good, not bad. I'm going to play down this Grist. I feel like we have an opportunity to do this, and I think what we're likely going to be doing is evoking this Endurance as opposed to hard casting it. So kind of baiting them into something and then evoking it in. Whether it's an Unholy Heat, whether it's an attack with both these Dragon's Rages. Slip out the back. 1/1 counter on target creature. It phases out. Don't even know what that means. Alright, phases back in. What do you know? So I think their game plan here is to get Delirium and then attack in and kill our Grist. But I don't think that's going to work out for them. 2 cards in hand. Unholy Heat targeting Geist. Sure. They have 1 card in hand. Blood Moon. Okay, there's the Blood Moon, which we were thinking about. Steam Vents. Sure. Geist goes away. And I think they have a Murktide. They were looking like they were going to cast something. Alright, we're going to invoke this here and now. Shuffle their graveyard. We're going to block the Channeler, which is going to have 1 toughness. I'll put our Grist down to 2. So if they do in fact have a Murktide, I would imagine they probably wish they blocked or cast it pre-combat. Grist is down to 2. They draw a card. Pass the turn. Okay. Court of Calling, not bad. Play out our Geist. Play out our other Geist. And I think we're going to attack. We'll attack for 4. I don't think there's really much value to keeping these Geists back. If they can give this thing flying, they'll kill our Grist. If they can't, we'll chump block. And I think there's a good chance if they have a bolt, they'll bolt the Insect, or they can just bolt the Grist. So, like, the important thing is that we can get a Yawg into play next turn. Okay, they put a Hard Evidence and a Thought-Bound Phantasm into the graveyard. This feels like a Murktide, which I think we're fine with. 1, 2, so 6/6 Murktide. And they should have attacked first. A little bit of a sequencing error from our opponent there. So we will be able to kill this Murktide down. Unfortunate. Okay, well, I guess what we actually have to do here is we have to plus the grist, and then we have to chord. Conversely, I could minus the grist and chord for an endurance. I think the right move here is just to get Yawg into play, though. I think that is more valuable than getting rid of this Murktide right now. Didn't realize we had a land drop. That's nice. I think we'll draw a couple more cards here. Dryad Arbor, not terrible. So I can put this Murktide down to a 4/4. Play out my Dryad Arbor. I'm gonna go one more for now. Another Geist. Okay, so the move from here, I'm gonna start with an attack. Swing for 5. Okay, so their Murktide's gonna die here. Okay, there's an Endurance, which is probably best case scenario from here. 3/3. So I can Endurance, sacrifice. No, I think we just go with this trade. I think this is fine. And then I'm gonna Peatland and just dump down this this Dragon's Rage here. I think we're pretty safe. And I will discard Peatland. So they have Mission Briefing. They'll Surveil 2, put 2 cards into their graveyard, and then they can cast something. And they have nothing to cast. I think that will do it for our opponent. We have 4 creatures in the graveyard. Alright, our opponent scoops. We're 1-1. Match 3, Modern League. 1-1. Playing against DaManInDimir. I like that name, it's clever. We are on the play. Let's do it. DaManInDimir. Well played, sir. Well played. Opening 7. A little slow. I think it's keep. Opponent reveals a Gigantha. Let's see how this one goes. Opponent mulligans to 6. They keep a 6-card hand. We're going to lead on our Misty here and just pass the turn. Our mana should be pretty good all game with this start. So best draw for us is going to be a 1-drop, probably a Yawgmoth. We did not do it. We are unsuccessful. Play out our Wall of Roots, pass turn. There's always those like corner case scenarios where you get spell snared, and I'm like a little gun shy. Not that I wasn't going to cast it, but it always feels bad when that happens. Okay, opponent fetches, gets their Steam Vents tapped, plays out a Sacred Foundry, so this is going to get endinged, or we're going to see a Ledger Shredder, one of the two. Looks like a Ledger. Ooh, Emery, okay. It's been a while since we've seen this variation. They're going to be drawing some cards off this Bauble unless we can get rid of the Emery. They have 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, they got a gajillion card types in the graveyard. Up to 5 cards in hand. And we are flooding out a little bit here. I think we're just in a position. We don't really have much else to do. We just kind of have to cast this Yawg and then pass the turn. All right, we do not want to see any more lands though. I have to imagine our opponent probably has an Unholy Heat. They'll be able to recast this Bauble as well. We really want to pull one drop off the top. So likely going to happen, they'll heat down the Yawg. This is a iteration, okay. See if they have a land drop. There's the Unholy Heat, there's the land, 4 card types. So Yawg is going away. See if they forget to bring back the Bauble with the Emery. Sure. Okay, here comes the Bauble. We'll draw a card off that, generating some card advantage. Really would love to see a Yawgmoth. Any 1-drop will do, but we want Yawgmoth would be best case scenario. We're going up to 6 cards. A Wall of Roots. Okay, that counts. Doesn't feel great that we're going to be board wiping ourselves, but it does count. 1, 2, Wall of Roots, land. And then off of these minuses, if we can pull an Endurance, that would be best case scenario. But we do not. There's the 1-drop we were alluding to earlier. All right, so we have a solitary Yawgmoth in play. Opponent has a chock full graveyard. Teferi, sure. Mox Amber. So this can produce mana now, blue or white. They fetch. It's been a while since I played against the combo version of this deck. I did see Canister streaming this variation of the deck this morning, so I wonder if that's why this person is playing it, or if this is just their preference. Another Unholy Heat. Not great. Another Emery? They're mana short for an Emery. I don't think they can cast it. Okay, so now they're going to cast down an Emery. Yep. Ton of good stuff in the graveyard. All right, Endurance. I think that's going to be our move here, unfortunately. Yawgmoth. Another Evo. We don't want an Evo. But we will get an Endurance here. kind of priced into it. Here's our endurance, and we will shuffle. Hopefully they're not stockpiling anything in hand. We'll see. We'll see what they got. Opponent pluses, 4 cards in hand. 2 mana. Grinding Station. So they do have potentially a loop here if they have the breach, which they might. There's the breach. I believe this is a loop. Sacrifice 3. So we're gonna see what their win con is here. I'll scoop to my opponent as soon as they tell me what their win con is. I more clearly explain to my opponent that if they're gonna win with Grape Shot. We'll scoop. Game 2. Okay, we're gonna bring in our Force of Vigors in this matchup. We're gonna bring in our Endurances. We'll bring in a Might. And I also think there's an argument for some of our spot removal. I don't know how much I want to bring in though. We will shave a Wolf on the play. Probably 2 Hierarchs. I wonder if Shieldred's worth it too. Probably not. Grist seems medium in this matchup. Maybe I don't want the spot removal. Endurance. I don't think I'm going to bring in 3 Force of Vigor. I think I'll probably bring in 2. So that's 60 right there. I feel like Innkeeper feels a little weak. I think I'll bring in a Fatal Push. We'll shave an Innkeeper. We'll go with this. Okay, we're on the play. I think we were on the play last game too. I think our opponent mulliganed last game. We still lost. Yeah, that's how it went. Opening 7. We can't keep this. We'll mulligan. 6 is really slow. But we are on the play. I think we're going to keep it, ship a Chord, and hope that this goes well. This is like very suspect. This might be a mulligan. We'll see. Play out our Catacombs. We'll pass the turn. Like, I really like the Endurance. That's kind of like the main reason I kept this hand, but it feels less than ideal. I'm actually not going to fetch here just in case we need to get our Dryad Arbor for some reason. Wall of Root's not a bad draw. So for that reason, I'm going to fetch basic Swamp here. I think that should be okay. And we'll get our Wall of Roots and pass turn. So next turn the game plan will be to get our Grist out and then Endurance from there. Opponent fetch Shock, Emry. Emry is quite problematic. They have a Drum in the graveyard, they have their Bauble here. So we might just be leaving up our Endurance on their next turn. If we draw a 2-drop, that would be best case scenario. 2-drop, 1-drop. Okay, still something. We'll play out our Hierarch, pass turn from here. So we do have a Yawg on our next turn. They're up to 5 cards in hand, up to 6 cards in hand. They play out a land, activate. We'll cast our Endurance now. Target them. All right, so that's a turn. We kept them off of value here. Okay, opponent Unholy Heats are ignoble. They fetch for a basic, 2 mana, and this is going to be a Prismatic Ending. Sure. 3 cards in hand. Okay, drawing a land. Had all of our board been there, that would have been really nice because we could have Gristed and gotten a Yawg on the same turn. We don't have that luxury anymore. We'll start with an attack for 3. We're going to get our Grist out, and we're going to hope that they don't have another artifact to get back, particularly a Bauble with this Emry. Keeping them off of that would be nice. 2 mana. Okay, iteration. They only have a white mana up as it stands, Flooded Strand, so they'll have white and red if they want it. There's the white. Drum. Drum not too scary. Fetch. Down to 7. Life total is getting a little low on their end. 2 mana. The second iteration. Sure. They have 3 cards in hand. Moving back to our turn. Okay, we draw into a Young Wolf. So Young Wolf represents 6 draws. So the question I'm faced with here is I can attack. I could hold back my team and get myself a Yawgmoth and draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can draw 7 cards off the Yawgmoth and hope to hit an Endurance off of that. So if they have the combo, I can keep them off of that line. Conversely, I can just keep up an Endurance, and I think that might be the line. So I'm going to lead with the Young Wolf and think about this for a second. They have 3 cards in hand. So if they have like Opal, No, I think we just get a Yawgmoth here. I think this is probably the move. Okay, interesting. We had a double hit there. So that actually opens up our ability to attack as well. So we'll attack here. That gives us 2 extra draws as well, having hit that. Okay, our opponent scoops. Appears we made the right move. Game 3. I'm going to bring in extra removal, I think. I'm going to bring the Young Wolf back in on the play. I'm going to cut a Geist. I don't think I want the Murderous cut. I wonder if we bring in, I think I'm going to bring in the 3rd Force of Vigor as well. And we'll shave a cord. Apparently my opponent knows who I am. Asking me if I'm playing Legacy these days. We're on the draw. I'm actually going to shave a land on the draw here. I think I'll shave a peat land. We'll submit. Okay. I think this is a very spiteful hand. It doesn't... Yeah, so this hand is obviously fairly fragile, but I think it's kind of has all the pieces that we want to deal with what their strategy is doing. So as long as we can draw into a land over the first couple of turns, I think this is pretty good. Our opponent mulligans to 6. Okay, opponent keeps their 6-card hand. Plays out Scalding Tarn. Tormod's Crypt, sure. Passes the turn. 4 cards in hand. Not a land. We would have loved a land there. From here, I think I'm actually going to play out the Haywire Might. I'm going to fetch a Tomb Shock, play out the Might, and we'll pass the turn. Okay, opponent fetches, gets a Steam Vent tapped, back to their turn. Okay, they're bolting this Might down, and I kind of want to incentivize them to do that. I'm guessing they have an Urza Saga, in which case we're going to Force of Vigor it. Okay, and there it is. We'll get rid of this Evo. So I was kind of setting them up. My opponent says they misplayed. That was what I was going for. They also should have sacrificed that Crypt there to exile these cards, but not too big of a deal. Besage you, not bad. So play it out, play out our Wolf, play out our Hierarch, and we'll pass the turn. And then we have pretty good protection for what they're trying to do from this point forward. Opponent does nothing. Okay, we're in pretty good shape here. I think I probably should have played that out pre-combat. Maybe not. Yeah, I should have. I should have played the Hierarch out. That was a mistake. Kind of clicked through it a little quickly there. We're gonna play the second one out. Also, probably should have tapped the Besage for that, just in case they have a Ragavan. Dash a Ragavan, I should say. Okay, opponent scoops. 2 and 1. All right, we are back. Match number 4. We're playing against Fresh. Fresh is going to be on the play. We are on the draw. This hand is very borderline. Very borderline. I don't love it. On the draw. On the draw. On the play. Oh, this is so close. Like the peat land is the thing that's kind of like keeping me around between the peat land and the draw. Like first turn, our first turn's spoken for, so it's like turn 2, 3, 4. Like by turn 3, we want to be drawing something, so we have like 3 draw steps to get there. I think I'm going to keep this. I think it's very close though. It is on the cusp of not being good enough. All right, opponent's playing Hammer. Let's see if they have a 0 drop here. Paradise Mantle, interesting. Not what I was expecting. That's a terrible draw. We'll play out our Hierarch and pass turn. So to me, this says that they might be lacking a second white source. Stoneforge, sure. Let's see if they get a Cauldron here. They get a Nettle Cyst. This is a really weird sequence. Very strange. I drew into a Court of Calling. So that's the business spell we were looking for. So from here, what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to pass with my Endurance up, hoping that they like swing in with the Ink Moth or something. I highly doubt that that would happen, but they play out the Paradise Mantle, sure. They equip the Paradise Mantle. See if they attack. No attack. Okay. We'll cast out our Endurance here. I wonder if they have a splash and that's why that's there. We won't shuffle anything. They have 5 cards in hand. We know about the Nettle Cyst. Besage, that's a really good draw. It's another land, but it's actually a land we kind of want. I'm going to play out the Dryad Arbor, and I'm going to play out the Hierarch, and then we're going to leave up Besage and then Cord for Yawg next turn. And I will not be attacking. This might be a Cauldron here. See if it is. Not a Cauldron. Okay, this is strange. I guess they don't have Cauldron in the main deck. That would be my guess. They have 4 cards in hand. Pretty slow start from our opponent here. Pretty slow. I guess there's a chance this isn't Hammertime. It would just be very... Maybe it's not. Maybe this isn't Hammer. Another Steel Shaper's Gift, sure. They get a Shadow Spear, sure. They can't exactly equip the Shadow Spear, so that's not really too much of a concern. Okay, so they're going to equip this Germ token, and then if we kill the Nettlecyst, the Germ will just die. It's an 8/4. We'll move to blocks. Sure. And I'm going to Besage the Nettlecyst. No damage. Nice. Alright, our best draw from here is a Young Wolf. Another Steel Shaper's Gift, sure. Sword of Fire and Ice. They're just playing like equipment.deck. And we're just going to start mowing down their creatures. So we get a Yawgmoth here. So the question is, do I want to... I think I kill the Stoneforge now. That's a really good draw as long as we get it out next turn. Then we'll just pass from here. So I think the only thing we really need to be concerned about is them hitting us with like a huge Inkmoth, but I don't think they're going to have the opportunity. Okay, yeah, we're up a game. So this is like a hammerless Hammertime deck. Do we want Murderous Cut? I think we definitely want the Might. I have to imagine they're probably bringing in Cauldron. I think I'm going to bring in Push as well. Maybe Cut. Cut feels a little slow in the draw. I think I'm just going to go with these 5 cards. I don't really know 100% what they're doing. Silex could also be fine. They had a handful of zeros. I think we'll just go with those 4. I think that's probably enough. We'll cut Endurance, Grist, Wall of Roots. Go like this. I'm going to essentially treat it like it's Hammertime. Okay. I'd say this is probably pretty good. They keep a 7. We'll keep a 7. Land. Sigarda's Age. Okay, so this is Hammertime-ish. So the question we're going to be faced with is, do we cast out this Young Wolf or not? And I think we do. And what's probably going to wind up happening is we Evo it away. Maybe. We'll see what happens here. Opponent casts an Inkmoth into a Stoneforge. Let's see if they get the Cauldron. Colossus Hammer, sure. Let me pull another land. I don't think that's really what we want, but I think it's fine. I'm just going to play out this Misty and pass the turn. Not really much else we can do here. Saga. Sure. Opponent has 5 cards in hand. So they can go for the kill here, which I think is what they're going to do. No blocks. Ornithopter, sure. Okay. I think we're going to... So the question is, do I force a Vigor here? They're representing a blacksmith skill. I could take out the Sigarda's Aid and the Urza Saga. I think that's fine. And we'll get rid of a Court of Calling here. And now if they want a hammer, we'll also have this other Force of Vigor back. Okay, cool. Surprising they actually didn't play out that hammer there. Tomb, no. Move to our turn. Another Cord. So Cord gets us a Might. It's also pitch fodder if we want it. So what does this get us? Get ourselves a 3-drop from here. Suppose I could get like a Hepatra, a Might. Those are kind of like the 2 best options, or just a Grist. I think I'm going to wait. And I might just Cord for a Might. You know they have 4 cards in hand. We know one of them. Paladin, sure. So I guess conversely, I could also get another Young Wolf. No, I think I'm just going to pass. Another Peat land. Not really what we're looking for. Okay. 4th land, this represents me being able to hard cast the Force of Vigor. It also represents me being able to Cord, getting a 2-drop, and then Evoing into a Yawgmoth. So here comes the Sigarda's Age, sure. Animate the Inkmoth, sure. Attack with everybody. I have no blocks. Hammer, sure. I'll let you attach it. They'll draw a card off that. Target the Inkmoth. And I guess from here, I probably just dump down the Inkmoth and the hammer. So I could also get the Sigarda's Aid and the hammer and then kill the Paladin on the next turn using Grist. So we're definitely getting the hammer. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to get the Sigarda's Aid as well. All right, so that was a mistake there. I should have let them equip the hammer to the Nexus. No, I wouldn't have been able to block. That doesn't make any sense. Never mind. 2 in fact. Okay, so from here, I can cast Wall of Roots, Evo Wall of Roots into Yawgmoth, -1 this Paladin, hope to draw into another 1-drop. Patron, okay, we're 1 turn off from that. So they cast this hammer. Is this on cast or resolution when it enters the battlefield? Okay, so we'll kill that if we need to. We'll keep this back as it stands. And the next turn we should have the win locked up. Stoneforge, sure. Okay, and we get a Nettle Cyst from here, sure. Okay, the Stoneforge in. We're going to kill the Paladin here. So the reason we do that is because if they get the Nettle Cyst in play, they can equip it to the Ornithopter, and we don't want that to happen. Okay, and now we can just wipe their board. Drawing in the Catacombs was fine as well. So I think this just should be lethal from here. I'm going to get a Blood Artist, and we'll start mowing them down. Okay, so every time we target with Hapatra or target with Yawgmoth, Hapatra will make a token, and it will also trigger Blood Artist, so we're just going to be able to wipe their board and amass 3-1. All right, match 5, Modern League. We are currently 3-1. We are playing against Jonathanvqcr. Jonathanvqcr. Throwback to the 80s and the 90s. They're going to be on the play. Our opening 7. I don't particularly like this. We're going to mulligan. I don't know if I'm just imagining it or what, but I feel like we've had a higher density of hands like that, where it's been like 5 lands, 2 non-lands. Probably just overthinking it, but that's what it feels like. We'll keep this, and we're going to get rid of a Hierarch, I think. Let's see what Jonathan's doing. Lead on Arid Mesa and pass the turn? Possibly? Yes. All right, Evo, not a bad draw at all. We'll play out our Hierarch. I think this is likely getting bolted, but you know, what are you going to do? Jonathan, if you would not bolt my Hierarch, I would appreciate that. It doesn't really change too much turn 2 outside of like we can cast our Geist without shocking. Jonathan's debating whether he wants to take the bait or not. I feel like we're due for a Renin 6 deck here, or a Fury deck. Jetmir's Garden. You don't see that one too much. Could be domain of some sort. All right, later, dude. He gone. Marsh, not bad. We'll preserve our life total a little bit. Get our Geist out there. Give it its best shot. Swing for 2. Beats 17. They'll go down to 16 off this fetch land. So we're imagining that they likely have Leyline Binding in the list based on the way they're fetching, based on their lands here. So this Boseiju might come in handy at some point. All right, so this is creativity. Okay, so the question is, if it is in fact creativity, which, well, it is creativity, I can't imagine they would play the Dwarven Mine out if they didn't have to. I would imagine they would, like if they had another fetch land, they would have played that. So from here, it's like, do we get Yawgmoth out, and then they binding it, and then if they have a, I think I'm going to play it a little bit safe here. So I'm going to start with an attack for 2. And I'm going to lead Hapatra this turn. And then if they just like creativity for 1, that's not the end of the world. And then next turn, depending on what they do, we can Evo into a Yawg, Boseiju down the binding, which I was anticipating. Then we can kind of go crazy from here. And I actually wanted them to binding that as opposed to the Geist here. Okay, Fable. Okay, so this is working out well for us. As long as they don't have another land drop, we're good. They don't have another land. Okay, so we just naturally drew Yawg, but I think it's actually better. Okay, so the question is, do we hardcast Yawg or do we Evo Geist into Yawg? I think we Evo the Geist into Yawg. So kind of like I'm being pulled in 2 different directions here. I want to do 2 different things. I want to get this Yawg into play. I want to get Dryad Arbor, but I also want to Boseiju the binding. So we're being pulled 2 different directions. I think I need to get rid of this binding now. Okay, So this is a mistake on their part. They should not be doing this. They should be waiting for me to make a move. So now we're going to wipe their whole board. So they're giving me the opportunity here. Okay, so we're up to 6 cards in hand. So I think that was a pretty favorable trade for us. They have 3 cards in their hand. We know they don't have a land in hand. And we'll see what they do from here. They'll discard 2, they'll draw 2, I would imagine. Try to find another land. Like, they discard an Archon, sure. So I guess if they have a Persist, they can get that back. Tarn, sure. Another Dwarven Mine? Interesting. So I think the line our opponent's going to take here, no, they can't this turn. So like the thing I was thinking was that they were going to try to creativity the Dwarf and then reanimate the Archon after that. So we would like sacrifice our snake and then they would get our Yawgmoth, but they're mana short of pulling that line. So I'm not exactly sure why they fetched here and now. A little strange. It's tapping mana. Okay, and I think they're gonna, okay, so they hit our Yawg and they hit the Dwarf. So we'll kill the Dwarf. Cord, okay. Let's see if we can find another Yawg off this. Endurance, okay. And the question is, do we hit their graveyard? And I think we do. I think we cut them off of Archon. They have 2 cards in hand. Okay, Young Wolf. So we have a Yawg and a Young Wolf. Or we can go Wall of Roots into Yawg, and I think that's the line because we can also go Young Wolf from there and then win next turn. But we do have to leave our Endurance back, so we'll leave that back for 1 turn. Opponent plays a Wrenn and 6, sure. No lands in the graveyard, doesn't really do much. Okay, they hit our Yawg. Bolt our Yawg, 1 card left. Yeah, I think we're okay with that. Okay, Twilight Mirror is fine. So we'll lead on our Innkeeper. Play out a Young Wolf. Play out a land. And the question is, can I Grist and Yawg as well? And I think I can. Can I Grist, Yawg, and kill the Wrenn? We don't really care about the Wrenn, I guess. So my biggest concern is they have something like a mana leak in hand. But even that doesn't really matter too much. Okay, we have 3 Yawgmoths in our graveyard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we're going to attack Wrenn and 6. They let that happen. And they scoop. Okay. All right. Game 2. Because this is a 5-color build, we're going to be bringing in Force of Vigors. We're going to bring in a Silex. We're going to bring in a Might. And I think maybe a Shieldred. Maybe I'll bring Shieldred on the play. Do I want to go for the throat? I don't think so. I don't think that really matters too much. Boarding out. We're going to board out a Cord for sure. I don't like Prosperous Innkeeper in this matchup. I don't like Young Wolf. And I don't like Birds either. So I think we're going to go down on 1-drops quite a bit. And we'll go like this. All right, see how this goes. This is for the 4-1. Well, this certainly is tempting. I don't think we can keep this. Our opponent keeps a 7-card hand. Our 6 isn't great, but I think we keep this and we ship the Dryad Arbor. Okay, opponent plays on Arid Mesa, passes the turn. We draw our Blooming Marsh, and I'm going to play out my Hierarch. I'm expecting this to get Wrenn and 6'd down, but I still think it's the play to make. It's not going to survive, regardless. Hope is we can draw into like a Geist on our turn and attack into the Wrenn and 6 that I'm anticipating showing up. Oh, no Wrenn and 6, okay. Okay, I'm happy with that. Hapatra. Okay, we're going Wall of Roots first. We got Hapatra down in a couple of turns. Opponent casts a Scalding Tarn into a Leyline Binding. Sure. We draw into a Geist. Geist actually isn't bad. I'd rather that than Hapatra just because if they do get an Archon in play next turn, I'll at least have something on the board. And I can kind of build from there. They're fetching. Stomping Ground tapped. And they take a hit for 2. Okay, this is Dwarven Mine. Fable. Okay, so they're trying to build up their board a little bit more so before dropping an Archon here. So Evo, not a bad draw. So I think we just Evo into a Yawg here. I think that's the line. This gives us outs, whereas taking some other line, we would not have outs. So, and the out is that if they attack him with the goblin, we can block with the Yawg. And then if they like bolt it down, okay. If they don't, like if they go for a creativity, we can dump down the dwarf token, hope to draw into a force of vigor, the token that they're targeting, and the binding, and then kind of go from there next turn. So playing to our outs here, and that's kind of the mentality that we have going into this turn. I'm anticipating that something's going to happen on this turn. And like if this is the extent of it, 1 Archon, I think that we're okay with that. Binding, that's annoying. They haven't played a land drop yet. 3 cards in hand. Yeah, I think we have to let this happen, unfortunately. Take a hit for 2. 2 mana Wrenn and 6, sure. Brings back their Arid Mesa, plays their Arid Mesa, passes the turn. 2 cards in hand. Another Geist. Another Geist, not really what we're looking for. This does allow us to swing down the Wrenn and 6. Once again, if they have creativity, we're just dead. I'm going to start with an attack into Wrenn and 6. Doesn't kill the Wrenn and 6, so it probably doesn't really matter, to be honest, but I'm going to play out this Apatra. Pass turn. I think we're probably dead this turn. I think this is likely it. The end of the road. Opponent fetches. Another dwarf, I would imagine. No? Okay. That's surprising. So we're not getting creativity this turn? And if that's the case, you're saying there's a chance. Opponent deals 1 damage to their Apatra. Okay. This isn't a very strange line our opponent's taking. Attack for 3. Treasure token, sure. Another land. They have 1 card in hand. Alright. Okay. We are in business. So we're going to play out our Geist. And I am just going to pass the turn from here. That was our best draw. The Force of Vigor. So it ain't over. Dwarven Mind, sure. Opponent Wrenn 6, sure. Interesting they didn't hit the Geist down. Meyer, sure. 2 cards in hand. We're going to take a hit here, and I think we're okay with that. And depending on what our opponent has in hand and depending on what they do, we might be able to just win on our turn. That's what we're going to go for here. Let that token go. Force of Vigor. Yes, please. Opponent's paying costs. Okay, opponent's letting it happen. Cool. Okay, we drew into a Verdant Catacombs. This represents another creature. So we are going to use that. We're going to start by attacking down this Wrenn and 6, I think. The question is just how do I want to approach this? So I think we're going to draw a couple cards here. See what our opponent does. Veil of Summer. Yeah, sure. That doesn't really change anything. Kind of a strange line from our opponent. Okay, we got a Blood Artist, so this should just be game from here. As long as they don't have like a bolt. Okay. And we're just going to pass the turn from here. We'll fetch upkeep. Get a Dryad Arbor. We'll see if they have a point of interaction from here. Okay, so they do. They have another Veil of Summer. They don't. Okay, we got there. Didn't think we were winning that game at one point, but we got there. 4-1. So after starting off this league on the wrong foot, we clawed, scrapped, and scraped our way back to a 4-1 record, which in my mind is kind of like the barometer for a successful league and an unsuccessful league. So with that being said, this was a successful league, which means this deck list is awesome. So Zerk knows what he's doing. Okay, might be over-exaggerating a little bit. It's only 5 matches that we played, but the list, it showed up, and it did well over the course of those 5 matches. We lost to like the home brew red dot removal dot deck with counter spells. So, we're not putting too much weight in that loss, but we got the other 4 matches, which I think is important. The 22 land count, I mentioned it at one point during the league, but I think that it felt like we had more hands where it was like 4 lands, 3 non-lands, which is, it's such a small sample size. It's hard to deduce anything from that. But I think I would have to test this further to really get a feeling for whether or not I actually liked the land count or I didn't. I don't know. I'm so inclined to kind of just go back to the 21 land build just because it's served me so well up to this point. And while it feels terrible playing out a turn 1 bird and getting it bolted, the times when that doesn't happen, the upside is so high. I'm tempted to say the risk is worth the reward. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's been working, so I don't know that we necessarily need to fix it. My last league that I ran, I had a couple of games where I got blood mooned out of the league, and initially I wasn't a big fan of the 3rd basic forest, and I might revisit that again as well. It just feels so bad getting blood mooned and not being able to play a game, so having an extra forest in the deck, you know, and giving yourself the opportunity to draw into it naturally or fetch it out early in the game is nice. I'm not 100% sure where I stand on this one yet either, but I think I'll probably test that a little bit more in the near future. Besides that, I mean, I really like the way the sideboard is configured. I really like the build of it. I am going to try the new card from March of the Machine. I think it's called Pylon is the card, and that would take this Murderous Cut slot. It's a card that you can't run too many of, because once you start having more and more convoke spells in your deck, that resource does start to become stressed, so you can only have so many of those. So between the Court of Calling, I think you want 1 Pylon in the sideboard, or at least that's what I'm going to start testing initially. So deck list is great. As always, our Friday builds tend to do well, and they're competitive builds, so if you're playing an event this weekend, something along these lines, I would definitely recommend. Thank you, as always, everybody, for joining me. We will be back on Monday with either a donation deck list, if anybody has one for me. There's a link in the description below to email me. Feel free to shoot that my way, and we can get that set up. And if nobody wants their deck list to be featured on this channel, then I'll pick a deck, and I'll run it on Monday, and we'll see how that goes. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. It has been my pleasure. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button, because that's what counts, and I appreciate it, and I love the support. And I will see you guys again next time. You know the deal, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Be well.